38. Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. And I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. Here is how the text reads from the New Revised Standard Version. You may keep your seats as I read this. You have heard that it was said. Now may I just pause this for a moment. Chapter 5 comes from the Sermon on the Mount. And in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gave the Beatitudes, then he gave the similitudes, and then he began to deal with their understanding of the law. And 5 times in this chapter, he said, you have heard it said, but I say. Yeah. You have heard it said, but I say. All right. And this is one of his, you have heard it said, but I say moments. Yeah. Yeah. So let's get back to it. Here we go. Jesus says in verse 38, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye, yeah, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, but I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. Yeah, right. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And verse 41, if anyone forces you, compels you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Father, I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart will be acceptable in your sight. You are God, truly our strength, God, and our Redeemer. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I want to do my best to share with you this idea of living in the 2nd mile. Right. Life in the 2nd mile. The setting of this biblical text, my friends, is the Roman occupation of Israel in the 1st century. Less than 100 years earlier from the moment of this text, from the setting, from the Sitz im Leben. Sitz im Leben, that's a German phrase the theologians call the situation in the life of the readers and authors, the writers, Sitz im Leben. About 100 years earlier, somewhere around 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey had conquered this land. He conquered Palestine, and when he conquered Palestine, that means he took in Israel. He took in Judah. Israel was pretty much gone, but he took in the Jewish nation. Now, it was not out of the norm for a Roman soldier to place his gear upon a Jewish man and command that person to carry his load. And just about a decade before the birth of Jesus, the Roman Senate had passed a law. And this is how the law reads. In any conquered province within the Roman Empire, soldiers may compel able-bodied men to bear their burden 1 mile, listen, but not more.
That's good.
Did you hear what the law said?
Yeah.
The law said that soldiers may compel, command, force anyone in the occupied territory to carry their pack for 1 mile, but not more. We see this being acted out in Matthew 27 when Jesus was on his way to Calvary's cross. And they told Simon they told him, they compelled him, the text said, to bear the Lord's cross. This was in obedience to the law that was on the books. The first reaction by some people might be, well, I'm going to rebel with this thing. You can't make me carry your stuff. You understand? That's a personal inconvenience to me.
Yes, sir.
But the thing is, you couldn't refuse because it was the law. See, when you don't do what the law say, it don't matter that you didn't get caught.
Right.
Oh, y'all gonna make me preach. I'm trying to tell that. I think we have company. We got company today. We ain't got no company. Yeah. Y'all know, y'all driving down the road at 85 and the speed limit say 70? Just because you didn't get caught don't mean you didn't break the law. You may have evaded capture. Oh, excuse me. If I'm back in the text, if a Roman soldier saw a Jewish man, he could command him to carry his backpack, carry his burden for 1 mile. And the man was required by law to obey. Now, most the Jews wouldn't carry that pack or that burden 1 foot farther. They got to that mile marker, they stopped. A Roman mile was about 1,000 paces, 1,520 yards, a little bit shorter than ours, which is 1,760 yards or 5,280 feet. That's ours. A little bit shorter. But that was theirs. And as you can imagine, the law caused resentment among the people. They see a Roman soldier coming, they probably won't go the other way. You remember, make me carry his pack or something. He could do it if he wanted to. Can you imagine how they felt when Jesus told them to go the 2nd mile? Can you imagine what they were thinking? Come on, Jesus. Come on now. You got to be kidding. Come on. Do you really expect us to do, watch this, more than what the law says? Oh, I'm going to preach in a minute. Yeah. You want us to go more than what the law says? In essence, Jesus was saying to his disciples, you need to be more than a legalist.
That's good.
You need to be more than someone who just keeps the law. More than somebody who can just quote the law. Oh, Lord. See, some people know the law, but they don't know life.
Yeah, good impression.
Some people know the law, but they don't know love. I might let me get a help. I'm going to preach anyhow. Some people can lecture you on the law and legalistic stuff, but literally living sacrificial love is lost in a litany of labors located line by line in what they think they know about the law of Jesus. It gets lost. People get lost in legalistic living. They know that there's two sides to a coin, but they only focus on one side. You can look at that coin. I guarantee you, if you take a quarter, George Washington's face may be on one side, but if you just look on the other side, you'll probably find an eagle. Jesus was asking them to make a sacrifice. A sacrifice for the kingdom. He was asking them to sacrifice for the sake of other folk. He was asking them to get their minds off of what they like, get their minds off of what they want, what they feel, and what they think, and place their minds on doing something for someone else. Watch this, watch this, and do it even if it's a hard thing to do. If it requires more effort from you, this is called living in the second mile. This phrase, going the second mile, has found its way in our language today.
That's right.
Y'all heard it. Y'all probably said it. Come on, go the extra mile, y'all. One of the marvels of the Roman conquest was this vast system of superhighways that they built in all of the conquered territories. There were over 50,000 miles of roads that connected all of the conquered territories. And each mile was a stone marker. And the New Oxford English Dictionary called them guide stones. We use the term today, mile markers. But back then, we think we come up with something new. It's nothing new. They just simply called them guide stones. And these guide stones had direction on them. They had distance on them. They warned of danger. And each one of them had the miles to roam etched on them. You hit this one, it may say 20 more miles to roam. You knew your distance. This is where we get that phrase, all roads lead to Rome. That's where we get that phrase from. Because those guide markers had this. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't like doing somebody else's work, do we? Oh, y'all can tell the truth. We don't like putting in anything extra for other folk. At the very least, we are apt to complain or argue about it. At least we're gonna say something. I know a person who spent 15 years in the army with me, and really kind of enjoyed serving, but decided to get out. And we asked him, why you getting out after 15 years? You know, you got 5 more years, baby. You with the other 5, you do that. You can do that standing on your head. You know how we talk. And he said, man, I'm grown. I'm tired of folks telling me what to do all the time. You did 15 years, got 5 more to go. Maybe you could do 5 more years with tears in your eyes. Jesus seemed to be telling us that in order to take the sting out of situations, we got to be willing to carry our burdens an extra mile. Right. And to do it, watch this, with a cheerful attitude. Yeah. I want to focus on one verse this morning, just one verse. I want to emphasize the thought of living in the second mile. Ladies and gentlemen, as Christians, as disciples of Jesus, we are asked to live in the second mile. Somebody say second mile. Second mile. Are you hearing that word, second mile? Say it. You're not afraid of that, are you? Are you not afraid of that? Second mile. I've worked with people and pastored long enough to know that successful people in God live by the second mile principle. There's a tendency for God's people to live in the first mile. There's a tendency to dwell there. It's easier in the first mile. In the first mile, we can make excuses. In the first mile, we can rationalize what we lack and why we lack it. In the first mile, it's easy. In the first mile, it's crowded with other folk, because you can get folk to go along with you in the first mile. In the first mile, they all bunched up. But it's the second mile where the crowd gets to thin out. It's the second mile where you ain't going to get much help up in here. The first mile is congested, but the second mile is a mile not well traveled. The first mile is bumper to bumper, but the second mile, the traffic is light. The first mile is gridlock. The first mile is where the crowd is. The first mile is where your friends hang out at. The first mile, you can run alongside your buddy. But in the second mile, oh God, you got to push. In the second mile, you got to press. You can't talk your way out of the second mile. The second mile requires effort. I run the PT test. When we start, it's all bunched up. There's 50 people taking the test, and they blow the whistle or shoot that little gun. There's 50 people all bunched up. Oh, that first mile, everybody in there. Oh, y'all ain't saying nothing to me. How many army folk in here? That's right. That's why I ain't getting no help. They don't know what I'm talking about. Hey, y'all ever watch the Olympics or something? Watch when the race starts? They all bunched up in there, everybody, in that first mile. Oh, baby, but by the time you get to that second mile, it's done thinned out. Yeah, in that second mile, you ain't got to worry, you got to elbow nobody. In that second mile, you got to worry about stepping on nobody's toe. In the second mile, oh Lord help me, let me get back up here. I'm about to. Y'all say that we in helicopter. In the second mile, the crowd thins out. See, the first mile, you can wrong and say, oh, we ain't got to do that. We don't need to do this. I don't care what they said. You with me? You know, because they're all crowded up together. But when you get to the second mile, you look over there, ain't nobody to talk to. Ain't nobody living with you in the second mile. The second mile requires work. It requires effort on your part. Let me talk to you about living in the second mile. But the first thing you need to remember about living in the second mile is you got to accept the fact that Christianity is a second mile religion. It's not even a first mile religion in the first place. Since the beginning of creation, there have been many religions established. And here's a news flash for somebody before y'all leave this earth. There are going to be a whole lot more too. People like to come up with their own stuff, with their own belief, their own take on things, their own understanding. They don't have anything to do with the text. The text is still going to be the text. I don't care how you come up with your own stuff. So much of it looks like a religion. Some of it looks like Christianity. Yeah, it may even smell like it. I don't know, sometimes when you fry chicken, it smells like a pork chop cooking. When you bread it and put it in the grease, you smell something frying. Oh, God, yeah. Just because it look and smell like it don't mean that it's what it is. So much of the stuff we do and say and the way we act, it just looks like we being a Christian. Nowadays, it seems that there's a religion for everything. You got first folk worshiping animals, folk worshiping trees. You got folk worshiping moon and stars and the sun. You got folk worshiping their own self. I like my brand. My brand is the right brand. But there's one thing that Christianity is that is very core, and that is it's a second mile faith. It's a faith that lives in the second mile. If we are to say we're Christians, then we got to understand that we are required to live in the second mile. Some of you are looking at me strange right now, but maybe you're asking, what does it mean to live in the second mile? What does it look like living in the second mile? Well, I'm glad you kind of asked me that because it gives me a chance to tell you to love your neighbor as yourself. Baby, that's first mile. To love your enemy and do good, that's second mile. You've always been loving your neighbor as yourself. That's first mile. But Jesus said, oh, God, help me up in here. To bless those who bless you, that's first mile. To bless those who curse you, that, oh boy, I'm about ready to come up out of this thing. Because y'all not listening to me. And I'm going to preach today, if I got to go home with tears of mine. To do good to those who do good to you, that's first mile living. To do good to those who you don't understand, those who were misunderstood, those who you don't agree with, that's second mile living. We are called to live in the second mile. Praying for those who pray for you, that's first mile living. Praying for those who are in sin. Praying for those who stand in judgment. That's second mile living. We are called to live in the second mile. The Pharisees lived in the first mile. But the Christians are called to live in the... Now notice what Jesus said in the text. He didn't say if a Roman soldier compels or forces you. He said whosoever. He said whosoever. To us, this means if a neighbor, a co-worker, a church member asks a certain thing of us, then we should do twice as much within our power as they expected us to do. You don't think you're going to need it one day? That level of understanding, maybe not the same thing they needed, but that level of understanding. This is living in the second mile. Christianity is often viewed as the most rigorous and demanding faith in the world. Not because it's difficult, not because it's laborious, but because it requires our heart. Our heart. Our heart. Not our legalistic understanding of a verse. Our heart. Something we can't seem to give. Some say it's a non-tolerant religion. But that's only because the legalist people have the loudest voices and seem to be taking over. Yes, it's a demanding faith. but it's the most rewarding faith in the world. Oh, thank you, thank you. It may be tough, but thank you. Christianity is still the most rewarding faith in the world. If you don't like anything I said, you can like that. No one should have told you that discipleship was easy. No one should have told you no cross. It's one thing to quote it. It's another thing to have to walk that second mile. If you see your journey as an easy life, then you're in the first mile. If your journey does not demand, I said demand, of your time, you're in the first mile. If it doesn't demand of your talent, your sacrifice, you're in the first mile. Why? Because being a disciple of Jesus is a second mile religion. It requires us to love in spite of, not talk about love. It requires us to persevere and be long-suffering. It requires us to hang in there in the good times and the bad times. It's easy to give a full and complete definition of Christianity when it's like what you like, when it's doing what you want, when it fits inside of your vernacular. But what if it's outside of what you like? What if it's outside of your vernacular? Then can you still love? Then can you still cherish? Then can you still be there? It's not easy to give full and complete love when you're not in the second mile. The faith that Jesus introduced to the world, he made it effective. He made it effective by the shedding of his blood on the cross. It's like a diamond with many facets. It's one diamond, but it's many facets of the diamond. What we do is we look at our facet, and that one facet, that's it. Anything else? What about the facet over here? What about the one hard to see? What about the one hard to get to?
That's good.
What about that one? Is it no less part of the diamond? To appreciate its full value and beauty, we have to look at every angle of that diamond. Oh God, the angle we don't like. We can't just see things from one angle, see things from one position. We can't just see things from one view. Christianity makes for a beautiful life, and it brings happiness on earth as we head toward heaven. But it doesn't mean that life is going to be easy. It doesn't mean decisions going to be easy. In some religions, you have to acquire a certain amount of money or status to get somewhere. Christianity is different. You can't be a Christian and be a part of another religion at the same time.
That's right.
Oh God. You can be Hindu and Buddhist at the same time. You can be a Yanist and a Taoist at the same time. But not Christianity. It stands alone, baby. There is no back door. There's no alternative route. There's no alternative choice. It's Jesus and him crucified. We have to live in the second mile. Now this leads me to the second point. Jesus requires us to live in the second mile. First, you got to know that you are in a second mile religion. Now, you got to understand it's a requirement to live there. Christ lived in the second mile. We see this in his life and his teachings. When we consider his life, we quickly realize he lived there. He stayed there. Do you remember Zacchaeus? Anybody remember Zacchaeus?
Yes, Yes, sir.
Zacchaeus was a despised tax collector down in Jericho. Oh, he was despised. He was a thief in the eyes of the people. He was hated by the people. All people in the town of Jericho, they didn't like Zacchaeus. And Jesus went, ate dinner with him, and fellowship, watch this, fellowship with the other sinners. He lived in the second mile. He didn't talk about it. He lived in it. The so-called saved ones, they saw the sinners as wrongdoers. So they decided to disassociate with them. They were the lowlifes of society. But Jesus spent time with these so-called lowlifes. I wonder, how high was your life before Jesus found you? I just wonder. He walked with them. Oh God. He talked to them. He ate dinner with them. Jesus talked to those who were considered beneath society's standards. And he dealt with them, watch this, on a personal level. He lived in the second mile. This is what we are called to do. We're not called to come in here and talk about living in second mile. We're called to live in the second mile. Jesus requires us to live in that thing because he not only lived it, but he taught it. In this same verse 38 through 48, in this same chapter 5, he teaches us to turn the other cheek. One of the hardest things known to man is not to retaliate. Since you did this, then I'm not going to do that for you. It's always tempting to hit back in some kind of way. Get back at somebody. Withhold your love and support of them in order to punish them. In order to send them a message. But Christ tells us to live in the second mile. Live there. Some Christians act like the people in the world are their worst enemy. No. They're our mission.
That's good.
Oh, God. They spend most of their time avoiding people. These saved, sanctified people. I know I pronounced that wrong, but I like it like that. Sanctified it.